Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Virtual Academy of Large-Scale Change. So I'm Ian Smith. I'm Program Lead for Improvement Methodology in NHS England's Sustainable Improvement Team. I'll be facilitating the program with my Sustainable Improvement Team colleagues. That is Elaine Bayliss, who is an experienced large-scale change leader, and Michael Anderson, an experienced improvement program manager and lean thinker. We also have with us our good colleague Rachel Gray, and I think somewhere joining us we have Phil Rainwright as well. And we will be the faculty for today's induction session, as well as the facilitation team throughout the program. So today we'll be looking at an induction and introduction to the Virtual Academy. It'll give us a chance to interact and practice with some of the WebEx interaction functions and tools that we will use throughout the webinar series. We will introduce everyone to the Virtual Academy and hopefully get to know yourselves, our delegates, a little better throughout the time we have today. We'll discuss and introduce the webinar series and its components, and we'll also look at what we call our learning compact and ways in which we can maximize our collective impact. So I think, to go straight into it, I think Mr. Anderson is going to take us through the ways in which we're going to interact and get everybody introduced. So good morning, Mr. Anderson.
Good afternoon, sir.
Indeed. Well spotted.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. So I'm just going to quickly talk you through some of the functionality we have on WebEx. Things have changed over the last few months, so we're going to just recap on some of those. And for people who have not used it before, this should be fun. So the first thing we're going to use is the feedback icons. So on the right-hand side of your screen, you should have the participant panel, which shows a list of everybody that's joined. And on the bottom right of that, you have a little section with a little raised hand, little megaphone, and a little exclamation mark. We're going to be using the raised hand and the megaphone. If you have any problems or you want to ask a question and speak to us rather than typing in the chat box, then please raise your hand. And if you click on the megaphone, you'll get these options here: yes, no, too fast, too slow, applause, or laughter. So to demonstrate we've all got that box and found it, could you all please give me some sort of reaction? You can give me a yes, you can give me a no, whatever you fancy putting. Oh, we got some smiley faces coming in from my fellow hosts, which is good to see. Yeah, lots of smiley faces. Even some applause. Oh, mark it down, Ian. I've got some applause. Thank you, everybody. Looks like we've got the hang of that, so we'll move on. The next thing we're going to be using today is the chat box, which I'm sure you've all used before, but just to recap, it's on the bottom right half of your screen. If it's not there at the moment, if you hover your mouse over the slides, you get this little pop-up bar that comes up at the bottom of the screen, and you want to make sure that your chat icon is blue. So if that is currently grey, give it a click, and your chat icon will come up on the right-hand side. And please remember, when you're sending it to, you always need to select all participants. We get a lot of people sending to all attendees, which is great, but that means that as panelists, we can't see what you're saying. So if you can always select all participants, that would be great. And there's Rachel demonstrating that for us. Thank you. And then just stick your text in, and there's no send button anymore, so you just hit the enter key and it'll be sent. So if you can give me all a hello or a hi or whatever you want in the chat box. There we go. Oh, excellent. All over that one as well. It's a dream group. Finally, the fun one. We're going to be using the annotation tools. So these have changed. If you hover your mouse again over the left-hand side of the screen, you will get a little pop-up bar that looks a little bit something like that. And at the top of that, there are some squiggles. And if you click those squiggles, you get this bar, which appears on the left-hand side completely. And we are going to be using today the arrow pointer at the top. Oh, there we go. Wow, already people getting involved, which is great to see. I mean, completely without permission, but whatever, you guys go for it. Okay, so let's see if I can do the sort of conductor stop. Everybody stop annotating for a second. You will get to use it on the next slide, I promise. But we've all found it. Okay, so next slide. Where are you joining us from? So grab that pointer tool you just got and show us where you're joining from. Wow, big spread across the country. Oh, there's even people from all over the globe. Got Australia, Africa, North America. We've got a large spread of people across the UK. Good to see. It looks like there's a few people in there. Linda, I know you're in Coventry, which is right near me, so that's good. Okay, thank you. I think we've got the hang of the pointer tool. That's going to come back a little bit later on in this presentation and throughout the series, so remember where that is. We will recap, but keep it there. And to finish off our sort of getting you up to speed with WebEx and connecting you up exercise, we're going to learn a little bit more about each other. So using the chat box, remembering to select all participants, can we first hear what your job roles are? And I will try to keep up with 150 people's chat box entries as they fly in. Project managers, doctors, project managers, finance managers, PMOs, quality improvement managers. Wow. Yeah, I can't read those. Record manager, public health specialist, senior program lead, Deming safety consultant. Sounds interesting. HPTP delivery manager. Not sure what that stands for, but that's good. Okay, great. I've got graduate management trainee. Commissioning manager. Excellent. It's a wide array of different job roles there. Next, what are you hoping to get out of this webinar series? So why have you joined us today, and why are you planning to join us for the rest of the series? Thank you for explaining HPTP. Insight and tools, learning, personal development, to learn, yeah, find out what it's all about, change management. God, it's a real test for the eyes, this.
You did a brilliant job there, Michael.
Thanks, Elaine. Help me do my job properly. Oh, well, that's a lot to live up to, but we will try our best. Tools for large-scale change. I'm sure we can definitely do that. Learn how to embrace change. Great. Thank you. Wow, still coming in. So while they're coming in as well, also going to ask you to add in there, what's your biggest transformational challenge? Yep, make links is a great one for the last question. Thank you. Yep, we're trying to connect people up, create networks. STP is in there for challenge. People, cultural change, MTP commissioning. Create the right narrative. Yeah, very important. It's all about storytelling now, isn't it? Culture again. Collaborative working. Okay, great. So it sounds like you're all here for the right reasons, and you've all got similar challenges which are going to be addressed throughout the series. So without further ado, I'll hand you on to the actual meaty stuff. Pass you over to my colleague, Elaine.
Thank you so much, Michael. And yeah, thanks for really warming everybody up. It's great to see so much stuff coming through the chat box there. So let's move on to telling you a little bit about the Virtual Academy. And I don't actually know where the time has gone, but we're now celebrating the first birthday of our Virtual Academy of Large Scale Change, as we launched it just over a year ago now on the 12th of October 2017. So it's really great to be with all of you today as we launch the next round of our webinar series and start to look forward to year two. So let me tell you a little bit about the Academy and where it came from. This new iteration of the Academy is built upon the original Academy of Large Scale Change that was developed by the NHS Institute of Innovation and Improvement in around 2010. And that was led by our very own Sustainable Improvement Team Director, Lynn Winstanley, working alongside Dr. Helen Bevan and Paul Plisek. Now, our new Virtual Academy has been designed by ourselves in the SI team to accompany the launch of our recently refreshed Leading Large Scale Change Guide, and I'll tell you a little bit more about that shortly. The aim of the Academy is to help and support people like yourselves in the health and care system to understand a little bit more about and to start to build your skills in leading large-scale change theories, approaches, methods and tools. So the Academy incorporates a comprehensive facilitating large-scale change skill development program, and that consists of 3 different elements, and we'll tell you a little bit more about those as we go through this introduction today. So the first element is this Virtual Academy webinar series. So thank you for joining us. You've taken the first step on that journey. The second is a number of regional Learning in Action masterclasses. Now, these masterclasses are 2-day events that bring system leaders together to learn in action as part of the team over 2 days, using and applying the large-scale change tools, approaches and methods. If you would like to look at what's on offer for those masterclasses and you'd like to consider applying, then you can do so via an expression of interest process. And Rachel is going to pop up into the chat box a link so you can get more information on those masterclasses. We also have access to a virtual academy collaboration space. This collaboration space allows you to connect with each other and to access the large-scale change webinar slides, tools and resources, and to share your stories with each other. We'll also share some information with you in a little while about how you can access that collaboration space. And just so you know, we've just made some additional spaces available within those system-wide transformation team masterclasses in February. So if you are interested in joining us, please do download the expressions of interest forms as soon as possible, as the closing date for those applications is the 20th of November. And for those of you that are interested, they take place in Leeds. Just move the slides on a wee bit. So the whole academy is underpinned by our Leading Large Scale Change Guide. And this was launched by ourselves in the team and the Horizons team at the Health and Care Innovation Expo back in September 2017. Working with very many system leaders, we updated the guide to support accountable care systems, integrated care partnerships, and other leaders of large-scale change to meet some of the challenges that have been laid out in the NHS 5-year review. So that guide now is an entirely digital resource, and it draws on the knowledge and experience of people who have led successful change programs, both in the UK and internationally. And if you dip into it, you'll find that it will give you a vital and comprehensive roundup of some of the latest thinking and the practical tools and approaches that you can use to advance your large-scale change programs. We've had a phenomenal response to the guide, which has been fantastic, with over 6,000 downloads and over 10,000 web page views. So if you haven't yet had a chance to view the guide, we really would recommend that you check it out. And you can access the guide via the web link that Rachel's popped in the chat box for you now. And also make sure that you have access to that in the collaboration space after this webinar. So before I give you a quick overview of the guide, it would be really great to get to know who's already viewed it. So we're going to run a quick poll. And what we'd really like to know is whether you've already downloaded the guide, whether you've not downloaded it yet but you're planning to, or whether actually for you, not your thing right now, so not planning to look at it just at the moment. So Rachel, are you able to open up the poll for us, please? Brilliant. So hopefully on the right-hand side of your screen now, you'll see the poll. You've got 3 options to answer those questions. And if you could just click and select either A, yes, I've downloaded it, B, not downloaded yet, or C, not intending to, we'll have a little look, see who's already got some knowledge about the guide amongst our audience today. So I think we're just going to give you about 30 seconds to fill in that poll, and then I'll come to Rachel. We'll have a little look, see what those results look like. Okay, how are we looking, Rachel?
Results are now up on screen.
Brilliant, thank you. I love how fast and interactive these polls are. Okay, so we have got 25 of you who've already downloaded and looked at the guide, so that's fantastic. So you guys will already be ahead of the curve, and you'll be able to really interact and share some of that learning and knowledge with colleagues on this WebEx today as we go through the session. 84 of you haven't yet, but you're planning to, so excellent. We don't know who you are, so we won't hold you to that, but we would recommend that you do go and have a look at it if you could. As it's interactive, you can just hop around the various sections and look at the particular area of interest to you that's going to help you with your transformational changes. And 3 of you were being dead honest and saying not at the moment, so that's absolutely fine. Okay, so let's move on. So the interactive guide consists of 3 sections. And in section 1, we go to our introduction of large-scale change. In this, we introduce the concept of large-scale change, which for us we define as the process of mobilising a large collection of individuals, groups and organisations towards a vision of a fundamentally new future state. And that for us is a really key bit. What is that fundamentally new future state that you're all working collectively towards? We start to consider what the literature tells us about large-scale change, and we challenge you to think about whether the change that you're accountable for really is a large-scale change effort. To do this, we start to utilise 3 different ways to describe large-scale change, and they include this 3 dimensions of large-scale change graphic that you can see on your screen now. The further along the axes of pervasiveness, depth and size you are, then the more large-scale change your challenge really is. We then introduce you to this model of large-scale change. And this model was developed through the learning of experienced system leaders who participated in our original Academy of Large-Scale Change. The model has been designed by them to really kind of support you guys with transformational change even across complex environments. And we go into this in a lot more depth in one of the webinars that follows in this series. And then finally, we start to bring in the change model. And this gives us a really structured way of considering the 8 key elements that we all need to really think about when we're leading change. So the critical elements of the large-scale change model, the change model itself, and the underpinning approaches, methods and tools within that form our organising framework for change that you can see on the screens now. Now, knowing that there are very many critical success factors that will affect our large-scale change outcomes, in the second section of the guide, we'll start to highlight a number of ways where we can enhance our ability to create the right conditions for large-scale change. We'll look at how the world is changing, and we'll consider some of the new era thinking ideas, including the recognition of the shifts between old power and new power. We start to explore things like the opportunities for using or shifting from change programs to change platforms. We consider our energy for change and ways that we can enhance that. And we start to have a look at how we can build shared purpose, so things like moving from burning platforms to burning ambition. And in our final section, we'll start to highlight some of the most useful tools and resources that we found really kind of help you with your large-scale change efforts, and hopefully very many of these will be familiar to you. So to recap on some of them, we explore and include information on theories of change, logic models and driver diagrams, tools that will help you to manage complex dilemmas, so things like, for example, looking at problems versus polarities. We start to explore things like the 7 steps to measurement for improvement approach. There are resources that will support effective stakeholder analysis, and they include things like the continuum of commitment analysis tool. And we also start to look at things like 30, 60, 90-day cycles of change and ways to help you establish pace through 2 steps down thinking. So let's go back to you guys again, so it's not just me rattling on. We'd be really interested to know about the degree to which you guys have actually used or applied any of these frameworks or tools to support your large-scale change efforts. So we're going to have another quick poll, and what we'd really like to know is the degree to which you're already using some of those large-scale change frameworks or approaches in your transformational programs. So your options are, yes, already using them lots, yes, I'm using them a little bit, just starting to get used to them, or no, not yet at all. And we're going to pop that poll up for you now. So a bit like before, if you could choose A, B or C, and then we'll start to explore just a little bit more what people are using amongst the audience that we have here today. Just let that run for a few more seconds, hoping that the guys that have already read the guide are at least familiar with some of these, and it'd be interesting to see what people across the globe are using. Might be different across different countries. Just a few more seconds, and I think the poll will finish. Brilliant. So Rachel, are you able to bring up results again? Okay, so a really interesting spread there. So we've got a few experts in the room, so big welcome to you guys, and I hope you'll be joining us through the series. We can get you sharing and contributing your knowledge so that we really build on that wisdom of the crowd. So about 6 people who are using them a lot. We have about 48 who are just dabbling with this now, starting to get used to using some of these tools, so that's fantastic. Hopefully we can help you to enhance your ability to use the appropriate tools as we go forward. And then we've got a big chunk of people, about 63, who haven't actually used any of these approaches yet. So you're definitely in the right place, and we can hopefully make you feel a bit more comfortable about what is available to help you and how you might be able to apply these frameworks, tools and approaches in practice. So if you are in the top two camps, if you are using these tools and frameworks and approaches a lot or a little bit, it would be great if you wanted to put into the chat box what you're using, what approaches are you finding really helpful, and what's been the outcome of applying them? How has it enabled you to think differently or achieve more along the lines of the outcomes that you're hoping to achieve for your transformational program? And we'll just get chat up and see what you guys can share with us. So Linda is using some of the QI tools to help bring structure. Give a little bit longer to type into the chat box, see what else people are using. Oh, Lena, sorry, not Linda. I'm just reading that. Jane, stakeholder analysis tools. Yes, absolutely agree, Jane. The challenge is moving people, absolutely. Okay. Tim is using driver diagrams. Yeah, and how do you find those help you, Tim? Interested to know what you're using the driver diagrams for. Sophia, focusing on networking and collaboration, absolutely key to large-scale change. And we have a session on networking at the end of the webinar series that could be really helpful to you all. Okay, Olivia is looking at some of the tools and how they can support involvement of wider communities. Absolutely, Olivia, really important. Looking at who else you can work with within your communities to be part of your distributed leadership model is absolutely key to success of large-scale change. So lots more coming in now, starting to whiz you up the screen a wee bit more. And Dan's talking about PDSA cycles for small tests of change. Absolutely. All large-scale change is predicated on small incremental stepped improvements that you test and refine again, and they contribute towards your lots of lots. So fantastic to see that coming up in the chat box. Talking of lean tools here, collaboration for emergency surgery change, more driver diagrams, fantastic. So lots of different approaches that really, really do help support large-scale change already coming up in the chat box there. Okay, so I promised to tell you a little bit more about the webinar series, so let me just run through that with you now. There are 6 modules in the series after this induction module, and the webinar objectives are up in the screen for you now. So they are to introduce you to and give you an overview of the principles of system leadership. We'll then look at the theory and principles of large-scale change. There'll be a session that takes you through the foundational elements of mobilising and organising and the use of public narrative to gather that distributed leadership to support you with your change. Myself and Michael will be taking you through the process of change and the change model and its application in practice. And then we'll be joined by colleagues from both NHS Improvement and our evaluation team in Sustainable Improvement NHS England to look at the key principles for measurement for improvement. And our final session, again from colleagues within the SI team, will be on looking at approaches for maximising value from your networks. Now, each of these WebExes runs like today, so it will last for 1 hour. It will be led by subject matter experts. They will be very interactive in nature, so a little bit like you have done today. Please do join in and really do share your thoughts and ideas and stories. One of the great benefits of this webinar approach is that we can really start to build a peer-to-peer community. And you guys are experts in your particular field just as much as we are, so sharing and learning with each other is really, really key. And we'll also share with you lots of case study examples, tools, resources and templates that can support your large-scale change efforts. So here's the dates for your diaries if you haven't got them already. We'll start the series proper on Thursday the 8th of November. The session starts at 12:30 and finishes at 1:30. And that first session on systems leadership will be led for us by Debbie Sorkin, who's the director at the Leadership Centre. And we'll then run through on a weekly basis until that final WebEx that runs on the 13th of December, which focuses on creating and managing your networks. If you haven't already done so, then do take a note of these dates for your diary. And if you click on the links for each of these sessions, and there are dates now and times and links in the chat box, you can go through and register for those particular webinars. Okay, so I'm now going to hand you back to Ian, and he will take you through a few more ways that you can increase your learning opportunity. So over to you, Ian.
Thank you very much, Elaine. I see there's a question there that's just asking, will all the slides be available within the collaboration space? And yes, they will. We'll talk a little bit more about the collaboration space in a few more slides time, but the answer to that one is basically yes. So just to make sure that that we can all get the most out of the webinar series, there are a few things to go through. So first of all, it's helpful to have a very clear idea of what you would like to get from the webinars and get from the program. Therefore, do think about how the content fits with the particular transformation and change goals and improvement objectives that you currently have. Although we started with those already, please do ask questions throughout the program in the chat box. We will do our very best to answer those as we go. We also will be having Q&A sections either within or at the end of webinar sessions where we will try to pick up as many questions as we can. And for those that we don't, again, we will try to address on our collaboration space, which again, we will discuss a little bit more in a moment. We've designed this to be quite interactive. This doesn't look like it's going to be a problem, so please do get involved in the various tasks and polls and chat box exercises as they take place throughout the next few weeks. Important point, we appreciate everybody will have very busy diaries, but if you can, please do take some time to reflect on the program content and consider how you will apply it to your particular transformation and change challenge. Because of course that is the most important part to get the most from the program, is to apply some of these concepts and put them into practice. If you do that, then please do share how that is going, what you're learning with ourselves. We'd be very interested to hear about that, but also with others as well. The collaboration space can be useful for that, or you can share stuff with us directly through our Virtual Academy inbox, and that's all going to help us to hopefully learn together. And on the subject of learning, we are proposing what we call kind of a learning compact or agreement for the program. Hopefully it's popping up on the screen now. And this has basically got some promises from ourselves and some asks of yourselves for how we would like to work as we go through the webinar series over the next few weeks. So our first promise is that we'll start on time and end on time, so that you will know when the webinar sessions start. And as I say, because of busy diaries, you'll know when it's going to end as well. It's our aim to provide high quality interactive learning experiences. We brought together, we think, a very strong team of expert faculty for the various different sessions. We will access insights and subject matter from those experts and have them to share that with you. We'll share our stories as well of our experiences of real life application, and we will, through our collaboration space, provide a space to communicate and share resources and to collaborate with you and answer questions. There are also various resources on there for you to use on your transformation challenges. So what are our asks? They are similar. If you could join the webinars on time with us, that would be great, and we make sure to get everyone away on time at the top of the hour. Do get involved, ask questions, and share your experiences. That is really what brings the richness to this particular program. It makes it fun and exciting, not only for us but for others as well, I think. Do apply what you're learning. It doesn't matter how much or how little of that, but take what is relevant to you now with a particular transformation challenge, problem, or improvement objective you have, and put it into practice. And please do let us know how you are getting on. Feel free to connect and engage with others. You can do that directly through the chat. This is something that we've noticed occurs throughout the program, or you can ask others for their thoughts, input, or help through the collaboration space as well. And we'll mention evaluation shortly, again in a few slides' time, but each webinar ends with a very short survey to help us to continually improve, which we hope that you will take part in. So, next thing we've got, if you remember those arrows from earlier on and the annotation tools, if you feel that you would be happy to sign up to our Learning Compact, that which we've just looked at, then take an arrow, there we go, thank you very much, Robert. Take an arrow from the annotation tool area and pop it onto the space. I now have to keep speaking to fill the dead air while you all get on and fill in that space on there. But it's just to give us an indication if that seems like a reasonable set of promises and asks of your good selves. I can see arrows piling in. If anyone has not managed to find them, there's a little squiggle on the toolbar towards the left-hand side of the screen. If you click that, the annotation tools will pop up, and the arrow is on the top left, and you can click it on the screen. Still, the last few coming in. It seems like they are starting to slow down. So
you're doing really well here, Ian.
Maybe move on to I know. It's blocking some of you out, but I get the idea that for the most part, we seem to be happy to sign up to those gives and gets. Okay, that's good. That works for me, folks. I'm going to move on to the next couple of things, just to make sure we keep that first promise of being able to be on time. So each of the webinars is certified for continuing professional development points by the CPD certification service. So each webinar, that is excluding this one. This one's just the induction, so there are 6 content webinars to follow. And each one of those carries 1 CPD point for each taught hour of the program. So effectively, there are 6 CPD points in total up for grabs throughout the next 6 weeks, or 8 weeks as we start in 2 weeks' time, of the webinar series. You can collect those points after successfully completing the short learning questionnaire. So the evaluation surveys that I mentioned before that pop up at the end, they also contain the short learning questionnaire. And if you do want to collect CPD points for any or all of these sessions, you do need to complete that learning questionnaire. It's an important part of the process. And the CPD certificates will be awarded upon completion of that and completion of the program. If you are wondering about offline, we can do that as well. As I say, I appreciate everybody's diary will be quite squeezed, I'm sure. All of these sessions are recorded and they will be loaded up onto the collaboration space, so you can rewatch them if you wish, or watch them offline if you aren't able to make a particular session. You can still get CPD points if you watch one of the offline webinars. There is an offline survey on the collaboration space where you can do the same learning questionnaires that you need to. So on that note, so here we have, it's a very small image, hopefully viewable if you have a larger screen, maybe not so much if you're on a mobile device or a laptop. But our collaboration space is on NHS networks. We share everything that we do via the Virtual Academy through that space. I think the link to that space has just popped up on the chat on the bottom right-hand side of the screen. So as I've already said, you can access recordings of the webinars. You can connect with other peers on the topic of large-scale change. There are around about, I think, 8, possibly to 900 people already registered on there. We've got our diary of events, information about our master classes and how to apply for those as well. Plus, as I think somebody asked earlier on, all of the slide decks that we use and links to the various guides and resources are all in one place on that collaboration space. If you've not yet joined, or you're not a member of NHS networks, you don't need any particular NHS email address to join, and details will come out after today's session of how to join that space. But just to check how people are with this type of thing, we've got another arrow and pointer questionnaire, if you will. And the question on this one is how comfortable do you feel using and collaborating on online networking and collaboration platforms? And Fernanda's straight in with very. So these are going to get covered in arrows quite quickly. So on the left we have not at all, in the middle we have somewhat, on the right we have very comfortable. So if you could pop your arrow kind of roughly on that scale from left to right, from not so much to, yep, I'm okay with this, or somewhere in between, that would be grand. And it looks, for the most part, that most people are either very comfortable or somewhat. Got a few folks saying they are less so. Hopefully we will be able to help you get on if you wish to join the collaboration space. It is worthwhile doing. I say all of our resources are on there. When we send out the information that will probably come out, I think, from our Virtual Academy inbox, there will be a PDF guide of the steps to follow to get on. And again, if you have problems, if you email the england.si Virtual Academy email address, which has just popped up there again in the chat box, one of the team will do their very best to help you and get you online if you need that help. So how do we pop an arrow on? So, well, we'll cover it in the beginning of each of the sessions, Maria. So if you've not yet found them, we'll get you up and running. But if you take your mouse pointer, I'm assuming you're not on a mobile device. If you are, I think you might be struggling with that. If you're not on a mobile device, if you take your mouse pointer across to the left-hand side, there's kind of a floating menu on the left-hand side, and there's a squiggle on the top. If you click that, then you'll see the annotation tools, and the arrow is the top one. But just in the interest of time, I am going to move on to the next bit of this session. So, evaluation. There are 3 bits to the evaluation strategy we use on our virtual academy. And that's a self-evaluation before the program, evaluation during, and evaluation at the end. So we've mentioned the evaluation during. There are little pop-up surveys at the end of each session. There are some evaluation questions on there that help us to know how we're doing and to help us improve, and also the learning surveys for the CPD points. This link here is for the evaluation before. It's a self-evaluation of where you are now, what you hope to get from the program. It is open now and will be open until 5 o'clock on Wednesday, the 7th of November, before we go live with the first session on the 8th. Again, I think that Rachel, one of the teams, just popped that link, a clickable link, into the chat box that you can grab. I think when we send the post webinar details about how to join the collaboration space and so on, all of these details will be in there. But if you could fill that in, that would be great. It gives us an idea of where you're starting from and what you want to get out of it. During the program, hopefully we'll get your feedback at the end of each session on the WebEx questionnaires, and at the end there is another survey that pairs with this one, which helps us to understand how you've moved in your thinking or what you started to apply. So that's how we tend to evaluate. It usually gives us pretty good information about what you're learning, and applying it and gives us information about how we can keep these current and improve them for future delegates such as your good selves. So I think that brings us to the end of the presented content, and we've got some time to take any questions if you have any. If you do have questions, if you could put them into the chat box, making sure you select all participants so that we can see them and everybody else can, and either myself or one of the team, much more likely I would think, will be able to answer it, or we will do our very best to. So I can see, while others are thinking about questions in there, I can see there's one there. A silly question, what is it? I couldn't manage it from the beginning, so excuse me for the silly question. Is that Maria? I think you found the arrows. So Maria, and you've got them going, did I see just before? We've got a question, someone's still got, Emma can't find the arrows. How many people attended Leeds from your organisation? I'm not attended Leeds for what? Then could you just expand on that question a little bit? Or are you referring to one of the master classes we've had in the past, or to something else? While you're typing something in for us, just come back to Emma. If you are on a mobile device, you won't find the arrows, Emma. If you're not, if you float your mouse pointer across to the middle of the screen to the left-hand side, and hopefully kind of a faint, almost translucent toolbar will pop up, and you'll see a squiggle at the top of that. If you click that squiggle, you'll find the annotation tools, the arrows, the top left one. Did we get an answer to that question? How many people attended Leeds? No further, still can't find it. Maybe we will.
Donna's rephrasing it, Ian. She's rephrasing at the bottom.
I don't know the numbers off the top of my head precisely, but we've had anywhere between 80 and 100 delegates attend all of our master classes between Leeds, London, Birmingham, and Manchester. We've had one. So I don't know the Leeds number specifically, but it will be in that range. I have now lost the thread of the chat box, so I might ask you later, is there any other questions?
Yeah, shall I just come in here?
So, yes, please.
Absolutely. So Donna came back and rephrased her question. She was asking how many of my team should come to Leeds for the masterclass. So it might be might be worth us even running through the application process for the masterclasses so people understand the intent behind that. Would that be helpful, do you think?
We've got time to do that, yes.
We have, haven't we? Yeah, happy to. So the master classes are kind of intermediate level in terms of leading large-scale change, and what they aim to do is to bring folk out from a system transformation team to come and work and learn and share together for 2 full days, and it really expands upon what you learn in the 1-hour webinars in a much more practically focused way. So to apply for a place at those masterclasses, because we always get heavily oversubscribed, there's a short application form that you need to fill in. It needs to be filled in by an NHS organisation, but the attendees for that masterclass should comprise of key people from across your system who are part of that transformational programme. So we're very happy for people to come from health, from care, from local government, from charitable sector, etc., if they're part of your distributed leadership and key stakeholder groups who are helping you with that change. And what we ask is that a minimum of 4 people and up to a maximum of 8 people form that system-wide transformation team. And then we just ask you a little bit about what's the transformational change that you're seeking to achieve. So what does that fundamentally new future state look like? What that outcome be when you get there? We ask you a little bit about what you've done so far and how you think the Large Scale Change Masterclass could help you to accelerate that change. We ask if you've got senior director level sponsorship to come for the 2 days. We check in on what your sort of impact and evaluation approach is to that change and how you feel about sort of sharing your learning with everybody. So you've popped down all your details on that form, send it in to us into the Virtual Academy inbox, and then myself and Ian put a day aside to read all the applications. And we try to take as many teams as we possibly can. So we really want to get a broad spread of teams from across the country, having the opportunity to come along to the masterclasses and to learn and share together. They're hard work. You'll go home whacked, but very fulfilled, we think. The evaluation so far has been really, really positive. With, I think it was 97% of people would recommend to a friend. Gosh, the hundreds that we've had come through the masterclasses so far. You do need to do the 2 days, so you have to commit to the 2 full days, and they are back-to-back days with just the 1 night sort of sleep in between. And you will bring your system transformational programme with you in your mind to work on through those 2-day masterclasses. So good fun events, loads of interaction, lots of peer-to-peer support and challenge, opportunity to really build a big community with other like-minded folk in the room. To answer a question that popped into the chat box, there is no cost. We fully fund the masterclasses, so the only cost that you would have would be your transport and any overnight stays that you feel you might need. And I think we have around about 60 to 80 places available at the Leeds Masterclass in February. Anything I've missed, Ian? That's all from the top of my head.
Seemed pretty thorough to me, but we see if folks have questions. I hope that was a fairly comprehensive run through. So you covered costs. There are some other questions folks have asked about how many should I bring. We recommend a minimum of 4 and a maximum of 8. Typically, we've had teams of around that kind of number, 6 or 7 per team, and it depends on how we manage that expression of interest process to try and take as many folks as we can. There's a good question here about, are these masterclasses a top-up to the webinars or in addition to? I think that's a good one. We always kind of saw it as something that was to build on what's in the webinars, but many of the delegates that we've had have said that they've said different things. Some people said they found it helpful to do these before coming. Some people felt that they didn't need to do them before coming and got a lot of value out of it having been there, and some people have decided they want to do these after having done a masterclass. So I'm not sure there's a hard and fast rule to that. It might depend on your personal preference and learning styles as to how you kind of receive them. What else have we got around on questions? There's a question about how quickly do we get the link to view things offline if you can't make a session. I know we the team try to turn that around very quickly within 24 to 48 hours. You will, if you sign up on the collaboration space, get a notification if you turn them on from NHS networks telling you that something's been uploaded, so you can check as soon as they are if you do it that way. What else has come through on the question?
Yeah, they're actually flying in now, Ian, so I'm just trying to keep track of them. Apologies, guys, if we're hopping backwards and forwards. So it's why we've left a good bit of space to answer your questions today. There was a question that I noticed from somebody in Wales asking, would we be open to offering some places to folk from Wales? It's predominantly a kind of an English-focused piece of work, but I have absolutely no problem considering applications from Wales. I don't think you would have either, Ian, would you? We want to be as inclusive as we can with this. So, yeah, as long as you've got a transformational programme.
Yeah, I couldn't make any promises. Obviously, we are in NHS England, and we're primarily focused on improvement across the NHS in England. I appreciate that if there could be kind of cross-border type transactions with some health services around the border between England and Wales. So I wouldn't be surprised if folks had people on their team who were from slightly out of area if they were near a border. But it will depend, I think, ultimately on how many applications we get and what the subscription levels were, whether we could take you. But we wouldn't rule it out of hand right at the offset, I don't think. I did see a question, who leads the masterclasses? Elaine and I attend them all. We host and MC the masterclasses, and we bring some of our faculty from the webinars along as well, who lead different sessions. We're quite pleased with how they go, and the feedback, as Elaine said, has been very good. What else have we got? We've got a few more minutes to answer as much as we can, so we may as well do the best we can to address things.
We'll try. So there was a question from Adrian. He was asking, what about people leading smaller projects, such as collaborations across 10 practices within the CCG area? So again, I think it's a similar kind of answer, isn't it, really, to the Wales one. We will absolutely look at every application where you're hoping to transform and improve services for your local population. The large-scale change approaches, series, tools, frameworks work equally as well on smaller projects. So we would not exclude you at all. And we have had some smaller projects, but it is a little bit, isn't it, in the rounding in terms of how many applications we have. We were so inundated last time that we've already filled the January London masterclass from applicants we had for the September session.
Yes,
but we are hoping to do some next year, more into the new financial year.
Hopefully. Don't let it put you off. Don't let it put you off.
Go for it, apply.
10 practices to me, that could be a large-scale change. We go into the model that Elaine discussed a little bit earlier on size, pervasiveness, and depth. So whilst geography may or may not be the main dimension of large scale for yourself, some of the others very well might be. So we'll go into that in a little bit more depth, and there are different ways to define it. So I would say 10 practices across an area. It might not be like a national program, but it could definitely qualify as a large scale change. So I wouldn't let it put you off at all. If you find the content helpful, go for it. We'll consider everything that comes in. What else have we got? Have we addressed?
I got so many questions about the masterclasses. So I think, there's individual questions like, can private organisations access the masterclasses too? And Tracy, if you are part of a system-wide team working with NHS colleagues, then absolutely yes. Nobody comes in isolation. The whole kind of point of the masterclass is as the system team comes. So the trick for you would be to link in with the NHS folks that you're working with within your region or system, and for you to work together to put in an application. Then you'd be absolutely more than welcome. But the application does need to be submitted in the first instance by an NHS organisation.
Okay. Question about how much has changed over the last year. We haven't done two exactly the same. Is the answer to that question, David. We have the same agenda and the same content very broadly in our masterclasses, but each one has had its own character and its own slight nuances and its own tweaks as we try to respond to what's happening in the room, the asks of the people in the room, and as we learn what seems to go well. We've made, I think, tweaks to every one. I couldn't list them out for you, but we try to make it right for the delegates who come and try to make it better each time based on what we've learned from our previous experiences. Probably the best answer that I can give to that particular question.
Yeah, and I would just pick up what Rachel said in the chat box there, Ian, and that we've actually applied our own thinking and logic to ourselves. So after every event, we sit and do an after-action review, and we very much use the PDSA approach. So, the plan, do, study, act approach to small incremental change. And we apply that to the masterclasses so that we can keep improving them over time. So far, I think, touch wood, they seem to meet delegates' needs, I think, Ian, don't they? We seem to have helped folk. So. And on the back of that, we've been engaged with some teams locally to kind of follow up with them and to help and support them a little bit more on the ground in terms of what they're trying to achieve next. So it's very light touch follow-up support because we haven't got a huge amount of capacity. But teams seem to be applying it and kind of motoring, really. So, do apply.
Definitely. Those teams that we worked with very early in the year came back to our alumni event just a couple of weeks back, and some of their feedback on what they've managed to do so far and what they've found helpful was very, very encouraging. We're very, very grateful for the feedback that they've given us. I've seen a very relevant question here. Somebody's asked, I think Dan has asked, and somebody's said, can I attend on my own, or is it designed for a team? It is designed for a team, Dan, and I can't see that it's somebody seconding Dan's question, and it's very much about applying the methodology and tools to a live transformation project. It's not so much a classroom type experience, very much works for working on and making some progress with something that you are working on now as a team. I think I've said that correctly, and correct me if I am incorrect.
No, spot on. Absolutely spot on.
There's a question about preliminary work. We don't really go in too much for pre-work or preliminary work because we appreciate how packed everyone's diaries is. We might point people to one of the webinars here. Hopefully you will be joining those with us anyway. But we do not disbar anybody from coming if they've not been part of these webinars. As I say, our delegates, some have told us that they haven't done any, but they got a massive amount of value from coming along. So we're quite open to that. I don't know whether I picked up all of the questions or not, but yes, you can.
There is another one, Ian, so we're trying to do a real double up to all these questions. It's fantastic. So Tim has reminded me that we haven't mentioned something else about the masterclasses. So Tim's asked the question, will the sessions describe driver diagrams and logic models, we call them? So absolutely, yes, they will, Tim. And what we haven't mentioned is that there's a second offer within the masterclass. So if you come to the 2-day Leading Large-Scale Change and Systems Leadership Masterclass, the 2-day back-to-back session, which the likes of myself, Ian, and Debbie Sorkin helped to run, then you also have the opportunity to access a follow-up day that's run by our colleagues who are sort of experts in knowledge management, networks, and impact and evaluation. And we ran the very first one of those, was it only last week? Last week, yes. So first out of the box of that one, so very much for us trialling it and seeing whether that would kind of meet people's needs, because it was an awful amount of content to get through in one day. We were really chuffed that seemed to go really, really well with our poor guinea pigs that came to day one. So we will be offering that again next year. So if you come to either the January or the February masterclasses in quarter 4, you have got the opportunity to come to that session in March, and that will absolutely pick up on driver diagrams and logic models, and not only pick up on them, you live work on them as part of the challenge that you have in your transformational team. I hope that answers that question. Gosh, Michael, I'm just wondering if Ian and I have missed anything. Michael's been keeping track in the background as well. I'm whizzing up and down the list and I've lost track now.
A few minutes, and we've got just 1 or 2 things to do, so hopefully we've addressed enough of the questions. I'm not sure we've got more. Hopefully we've got the vast majority of them. I guess we could have a quick look through after the session and see if there are any more that we could perhaps pick up on the collaboration space. Mr. Anderson, is there any key ones that you think we've missed?
No, I think you've covered the majority of them. Like you said, if there's anything we've missed, we'll add it to the collaboration space. But the grouping of questions that people have asked and sort of people seconded, I think you've covered all of them.
Splendid. Okay. Well, just to make sure we keep that first promise about start on time and end on time, we've only got, I think, this remaining slide to do. What is coming next? Hopefully we haven't put you off joining us. Hopefully you're looking forward to joining the webinar sessions with us and our faculty over the next 6 weeks. The first one starts on Thursday, the 8th of November, in 2 weeks' time. It will be same time, same place, Thursdays, 12:30 till 1:30. First one is Systems Leadership, which will be with our good colleague Debbie Sorkin, faculty member from the Leadership Centre and aficionado on all things system leadership. I think there is a link has just popped into the chat box where you can click on that link and follow it to the registration page if you have not already done so. And that would be fabulous. Hopefully we will connect again with many of you then on Thursday the 8th. And until then, I hope that you have a grand couple of weeks. Please do our pre-evaluation survey. Please register for that link and we'll join you again on Thursday the 8th at 12:30. And until then, have a grand time, have a grand week, or 2 weeks as it is, and we'll connect with you in a fortnight's time. Many thanks, everyone. Have a grand day.